go to... Computer's angry. That filter's in here. Why are we blue?
It's like very. I look like I'm having sinus. It's just not
probably just the
fusing
background.
oxygen.
Just doing camera.
Yeah, sure.
What does that mean? Are you doing the our segments with us, Michael?
Potentially, yeah. It depends on how long, I guess, everything takes.
Okay.
Because in the email you said 3 hours plus. I'm like, that's...
That's for both episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I should be able to do the segments with you.
Okay. Either way is fine. We haven't had any of the guests do them yet, but I figured you're cool, so.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm cool. I'm a cool kid. Never knew I could be a cool kid.
Amongst weirdos. I have a shirt that says Nerd Princess and has a little Princess Peach with rainbow hair.
Nice. I love it.
That's my people. I know that. So I get in trouble. Oh, I forgot about that giveaway. I wonder if I could do giveaways through here. I got these little packets that turn your campfire rainbow colors.
Ooh.
I can't take it out in a second. It's a topic. Let's choose a topic. Chat and interview. How about that?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Goodness.
Okay, so this is our chat window. Okay, cool. We are live, I think. Hi, everybody.
Alright.
This is my first time using this platform, so sorry. You're on, yes? Green, and green?
Is it?
Am I green?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I'll turn this guy on.
Technical difficulties always. We'll get it dialed in at some point.
It's user error.
There's
Ah!
a lot
So, I
going
mean-
on. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Everybody online? Hi, guys. What are you proud of? Tell me what you're proud of.
that.
We're filming today. We're going to have giveaways.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, giveaways.
We have. Do you want me to refer to you as Coach Michael or ADHD Druids or Michael or.
Michael or Druid is fine. It's weird.
Needs to be tilted down a little bit. I'm at the very
Oh,
bottom.
yeah. You got you right in the tits. Oh.
Cutting off at the cleavage line there.
Okay.
There we go.
This one I think is fine.
Yeah.
I think you need to move towards me a little bit.
I do.
Every screen, yeah. There we are. There we are.
There we
Oh, I like that. I kind of like that view. That
Yeah.
totally looks like the backstage.
Here we are.
Hi,
Okay.
people. I don't
Hello.
see any chatting. Are you guys happy? Are you proud?
Hello,
Are you
everybody.
excited?
All right.
Okay. Do you guys know ADHD Druids? He's pretty
Hello,
cool.
everyone. Hello. I don't know if they can see me or not, though.
So the people on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, I think that's it. But it's like I have like 2 accounts on each of those. They can see you right now. The only people who can't are on TikTok. Oh, and Insta. TikTok is the only one you can't see right now, but they'll see you in the recording. This is
Well, For those of you that can't see me right now, you're missing out. No, I'm kidding.
You can see us.
I can see you, yes.
Okay. That's all that matters.
That is all that matters.
One more-
They can just
one
listen
more-
to my voice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna turn you up
Okay.
a little bit. Can I turn this up a little bit?
No.
I can turn myself up if I need to.
There, I got it all the way up. Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Keep to GoPro cool. How's that? Actually, if I just take it to here. I just don't want to have to get up every 10 minutes because it's overheating.
Yeah, the ring light is also very much in the shot.
Very much what?
In the shot.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I have to. It says no sound detected. Check your audio settings.
Goody.
Was that just maybe because no one was talking?
I made an affirmation song. Can you hear my TikTok? Justin, can you hear me? Why wouldn't it test that before I go live? You know what I'm saying?
Hello.
How do I get out of here? So where did it say no sound detected?
A red like banner popped up.
I think it's here. Oh, yes. Oh. Do I need to be this close? See, it's registering something.
Yeah. Thank you for being patient with us.
It's no problem. I'm also a streamer, so I understand all the technical funness that
You
comes.
have a good streaming platform that you use?
So I predominantly just stream to Twitch, so I use OBS, OBS Studio. I know I haven't really gotten much into the TikTok side of things because TikTok is like the TikTok studio is kind of meh.
Yeah, I think we're figuring that out here.
I really was just doing it so I could get it integrated with my I use OneStream.
Yeah.
Because it, as far as I know, it's no, I don't have a comment.
I mean, if there are ways to utilize OBS Studio to stream to mobile platforms at the same time, I haven't really done it yet. But like, I know with TikTok, you need a stream key.
Yeah, well, TikTok has gotten even more complicated. They
Yeah.
made it exclusive where you have to get on a list, and then you have to prove through TikTok Studio that you're going to go live a certain amount of hours, and then you
Yeah.
get that, and then you can integrate with the.
But I know like there are ways to through OBS to stream to both YouTube and like there's a program called Restream.
I have tried Restream. It's garbage. So glitchy. So glitchy.
Is it?
And they do that thing where they like promise they make it seem like there's a whole bunch of features available, and then once you get in there, there's not, and there's no way to like get more information before you like subscribe and upgrade. So I upgraded, and I was highly disappointed. But really the problem that I'm facing right now is that TikTok and Instagram have strict rules around their streaming, and they just won't let you. So it's like, no matter what streaming platform I'm on, you're still up against. Come on, really?
It's pretty frustrating.
Why? What about now? Can you guys hear me now? No. What about now, Ginger Nerd? Can you hear me when I'm not up close like that? Thank you for answering, by the way. You can. Oh, okay. So people just be quiet. Okay.
Maybe it's because we weren't talking.
Okay. Thanks so much for your patience. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm listening to it and I can hear you.
We are filming episode 9 and 10, and we do have giveaways. Okay, let's later. Let's just get the show on the road.
Let's get it going.
Okie dokie.
All right.
I've been highly unmedicated the last 2 weeks, and I'm a little bit of a feral lost boy right now.
I feel that very much in my soul.
Did I do this? Did I record this? I must not have. No. I did not. Okay. All right. We're good all around. Woo! This does look crooked, but it's mostly the camera angle. I mean, this is a little crooked, but it's not that crooked.
This is also very.
Oh, yeah, towards you. Okay.
Next door.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, my friends.
All right. Good.
Whew.
Good all around.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 9. Yay! We have a very special guest today. He is a certified ADHD coach. His name is Michael. I know him best as ADHD Druids because that's his username on social media. Just a wealth of knowledge, a very insightful person. I enjoy talking to him just for hours and picking each other's brains. And he has some unique perspectives that I think that we can learn from today. So, welcome, Coach Michael. ADHD Druids.
Hello.
It's awesome to have you. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your patience with all this chaos.
Oh no, it's fine. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So just
Yeah.
chatting.
So, so you're a man.
You're a man.
And
Most
we are not-
days, yes.
Most days. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to first of all just kind of, because we have very similar experiences with the female experience, late diagnosed. So we don't really have a great grasp of a perspective growing up male, autistic or neurodivergent with ADHD. So tell us a little bit about your experience and how it may differ from ours because of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a subject and kind of like topic that I'm pretty passionate about because there's a lot of things growing up about being undiagnosed ADHD and autistic that definitely contributed to my life, especially as someone who is male, because it was. I'm trying to like think on like where to start. So ultimately, where I am now, like I'll start like where I am right now, and kind of like go through like how I got to where I am, especially when it comes to like identity, because as we know, like ADHD and autism can definitely play a big role in how we identify, and oftentimes autistic people, especially, are much more likely to be part of the LGBTQ IA community. And for the longest time, I never thought myself to be part of that community, but now it's still kind of like I don't know where I know like technically I do because I identify now as demisexual and gender nonconform. And it took me a very long time to even realize that, because growing up, especially being born in the 80s and being raised in the 90s, I consumed a lot of media, as one does. And that was how I learned how to be a person. Right? Like, oftentimes, especially autistic people, will use media as a means to develop their masks and how to figure out like, how do I function in society, in social circles, in and that media was not a great representation of how you should behave, especially as a male, because a lot of those movies and TV shows were like, let's have sex with a lot of women. Like, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was always like men were supposed to pursue women, the notch on the belt, or bedpost or whatever. And like, I never really connected with men a whole lot growing up. Like, it was really difficult for me. There are still times I struggle with it because I'm not like a hyper masculine person. I don't really identify myself with a lot of like typical male identity tropes. But growing up, I tried to fit those roles and like, become that hyper masculine person. So I use that as a mask and like did that pursuit of women, and it was isolating in a lot of ways because like I was not really being myself. I was acting in defiance of who I was, because I was made to believe through just like my observations and things like that, like who I was not the correct way to be.
Yeah, if you don't see yourself represented anywhere, the conclusion is, well, I must be wrong.
Yeah. And so with that, and like struggling to connect with other, male people, just like to make friends, like that was a big thing, because like, how else would I connect with them other than be like them? And so I struggle to connect with men, and I typically did get along much better with women or female presenting people, because like I was naturally more emotional. I was naturally more willing to talk to people, and like naturally, like I didn't really want to like pursue women in that way, like because like I'm realized I'm demisexual. Like for me to actually have sexual attraction to someone, I have to have that connection. So
Yeah.
like, but I was driven to pursue women that way. So I was in this very weird, like void of space where if I tried to connect with women and if I wasn't trying to sleep with them, I was wrong. And if I were just having conversations and trying to make friends with women, then the men would be mad at me. They would think that I was trying to like take their girlfriends away or move in on women that they liked, or like they were thinking that I was being shady in some way.
Yeah.
And so
Was it mostly the guys who were giving you flack, or were there some women that would assume that you had ulterior motives and call you a creep or whatever?
it was a little column A, a little column B, like I think like a lot of the women that I did become friends with and like had connections with, like realized that I was a person that wasn't in pursuit of them, like in that way. So I did have some really good relationships with women, um, and then, but that did always like strain relationships with men. Um, I don't know. It was just one of those things that like it was a really difficult place to be, and I didn't really know how to exist as a person, and it led to a lot of really bad behaviors and like a lot of like just not healthy mindsets, and made a lot of really dumb choices growing up, especially in like the college age of things. And it didn't like I had to really do a lot of deconstructing of like masculinity and my identity later in life. This is also like in conjunction with like I grew up in a household with a military dad, and an older brother.
In Kentucky.
You know,
Oh,
my dad's So my dad's
Military
from
stuff.
Kentucky, and so I grew up all over the place. So I will say, like growing up, I had a lot of exposure to a lot of different people because, like, I was born in Florida. I lived in Germany, California, New Mexico, Missouri, and then Kentucky, and then
Wow.
California, and then Kentucky. Yeah. So yeah, I've moved around a lot. I've had exposure to a lot of different people, and I think that helped a lot. But from my sophomore year in high school until late 20s, I was in Kentucky. So like that was like my formative years. Um, and yeah, so like there was, a lot of just conflicting beliefs within myself as an undiagnosed ADHD autistic person trying to find my place in the world, as we do often struggle with, but um, kind of led down a path that really wasn't aligned with who I was, just because I was told that's what I should be. you know
Yeah.
I drank a lot. I pursued women a lot. I was kind of not a great person, and like I had to do a lot of self-reflecting.
Yeah. Was there like a turning point for you, or like an aha moment that you can think of?
um I think it wasn't just like one moment, just like several things happening throughout my life that would challenge like the person that I was. And I always strive to like be the best person I could be. And like oftentimes, especially being autistic, you don't always realize like how your behaviors or how like what you say or do is affecting people. And so going through different relationships, and going through different friendships, and I've had my own like traumas and experiences and things like that that also kind of really shaped who I was, and like just realizing that I needed to work on myself, um, you know whether it be because of the anxieties I was facing, the fear of abandonment that I was facing, the so the trauma and just like the behaviors and all of that was like, oh, like these things I need to change.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of conversation around like autistic men because it's a hard conversation to have because we don't want to excuse behavior, right? Like we don't want to be like, oh, this autistic man is being creepy or harmful because they're autistic, right? Like we don't want to use that as an excuse. But there is some like root things that being autistic that does add challenges, especially when men are trying to develop relationships with other people, especially women. And we are prime targets for very problematic people because autistic people in general tend to be isolated, but autistic men are part of that. So like we're isolated. We are seeking community. We are, if we're not educated in a way of like how to be people and like how to communicate with women and other people in general, we seek like community, and oftentimes that community is like your Andrew Tates in those types of people that like men are XYZ, we're alphas and all stuff, and like that can be really appealing, especially to an isolated autistic male.
Well, it kind of outlines it for you so that it's like, step one, these are all the things I have to do, rather than just, getting the sense of from the world around you. So I can understand how that could be appealing because finally somebody's, put it into rules.
Well, that, and it's also like it's so much easier to blame other people than to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things that like trauma contributes to. Like we project ourselves and onto other people, and then you have people coming in. It's like, no, it's not your fault. You're fine. You need to be the alpha. You need to be this person. You need to be, this man's man, this masculine person. And like, if you're not getting women, then it's the woman's fault. Like, like
it feels really good to hear that it's not your fault.
yeah. And so like it's a lot easier to adopt that ideology than to look at yourself as like, oh, maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah. So is that where you ended up in that sort of group or in that sort of ideology?
I personally didn't go that far, thankfully. Mine was just more of like, pursuit of women and like as like, oh, I want to like going and try like I'm going to try to have sex with a bunch of women because that's what I'm told to do as a man. I'm going to drink a lot and use alcohol a lot because that's what like college men did and like that's what college people did. And so that was kind of a lot more mine. And like in anytime I had any sort of like encounter with a woman and like I felt terrible afterwards, people are like, oh, that's normal for like one night stands and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm like, okay. It didn't, I was like, all right, that's normal. That like after one night stand regret type deal, the walk of shame and all that. So like, oh, okay, I thought that must be normal. Come to find out, no, it's not really normal. And like I'm demisexual and I just need a connection with someone to actually like enjoy and feel that sex and things like that were actually enjoyable. Did
you have influences that kind of guided you that way? Because there's a point where you don't know what you don't know, and then you find somebody that starts to like give you the language and the perspectives where you go, oh, that's what I'm experiencing. Did you have any of that?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of like social media. I mean, TikTok has been a great resource for that. I've been on TikTok for 5 years now. So like that kind of identity has not really, it's been like the past 5 years. Like it hasn't, in my 30s, figuring this out. Um, there was always this kind of like, I didn't have the exact language, but there was kind of like a realization of like, oh, I don't actually enjoy sex unless there's a connection. Like, I need a connection with someone. And then later on, like demisexual and like even further, like asexual spectrum and things like that, like kind of came into the picture. But yeah, so it's like when there's like no one there for like a connection, like there's no like real strong desire. And there's that confusion too, because like I can be attracted to someone but not sexually attracted to them. Like I can look at someone like, oh, that's an attractive person, I want to get to know them as a person because I'm attracted to them, but like it's not like I want to jump in bed with them, or or if they were to want to, that's not what I would enjoy doing.
I
Yeah.
relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
And as much as we sort of disparage social media in many ways, I think it can be really helpful in instances like this. And I know I've had this experience, and I feel like you've probably had this experience of like bringing things to light when you hear other people talking about things that you really didn't have never been in your, realm. You can just be like, oh, this is a thing. There's a word for this.
Yeah,
Other people feel this way.
Yeah, we had a lifetime of our own vocabulary to explain it, and all of a sudden there's real language.
Yeah, and as people who grew up in the 80s and 90s without social media, how do you know? Like, you only know what's presented to you in your small little circle.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just a picky eater.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like...
I have serious sensory issues. I'm probably autistic.
Yeah, and that's part of the experience, growing up in the 90s as, undiagnosed ADHD autistic kid, like, like, why do I connect better with women than I do with men? Oh, it's because, like, part of my identity as a person is not in line with a lot of men. It's not that I can't have male friends, and I do have male friends now, and like some of them are like my best friends, but like growing up, like my best friends were women. I had closer relationships with women, and like that was also another difficulty because it was like that stigma of like men and women just can't be friends, right? Like that whole thing, like it still happens even today, and like it frustrates me to no end that people are like, you can't be just friends with a woman. I'm like, I can and do and have, like, and it's like,
maybe those people can't. Like, maybe
I've gotten a lot of heated arguments for that one. I can relate. I mean, I always thought that I got along better with guys because I have an older brother, and he and I were fairly isolated up in the mountains, and we lived in a really small town, and so we were each other's best friends for the most part. And he kind of raised me, and so I just thought, oh well, I'm just used to men because that's who raised me. But looking back, I'm like, well, I love pink and sparkles and all those girly things, but I don't like talking about makeup or babies or any of that stuff. And so like I can certainly relate, and as far as like just not identifying with my gender socially and just gravitating to men just get me better. I'm able, I have a bit of an abrasive tone and sense of humor, and they are less sensitive to that. Like they'll just like hand my shit back to me, and that's where I'm comfortable. So I can definitely relate to that. But thankfully for me, I don't think it did any serious damage to my behaviors.
I think,
I agree with the whole like the stigma around platonic relationships, because 80% of my very best friends are male, and I feel like the reason that is because they can't be vulnerable in male spaces, and so when they find somebody that they can just be totally themselves around, they really cling to that and they really value it. because that's just not offered in the man world, and I think that's really sad. I'm really glad that we're starting to kind of turn that around though socially.
Yeah.
We're having a lot of people in the comments relating. Dory said very early on, same about like not identifying with, not really meshing with your same gender. Being seen and understood by total strangers is oddly comforting, says Ginger Nerd. Yeah, it is. In fact, Melissa and I were talking about how we're probably going to do a live show next time, like in front of a live like audience. And we were talking about how like strangers in the audience would be way more comfortable than our own friends and family.
Yeah.
I thought it was because I grew up in a neighborhood with lots of boys, always, and the only girl in.
Yeah, so it's funny, there's a theme here because I've had the same experience too, where it's been easier for me my whole life to connect with the opposite gender, people who present male or who are male. And I think growing up when I was young, boys just felt less tricky to me. Girls, there was always sort of like social like expectations and undertones, and there were times when I was like, yeah, passive aggressiveness, things I didn't quite get, talking behind the back, gossiping, and boys just don't, from my experience, they just don't get into all that as much. And like even as adult men, it's like so much easier sometimes to sort of just connect. I was gonna say in that more superficial way, but I don't think superficial is the right word.
It's just a little more basic. There's not as much bullshit.
It's nothing is like there's no hidden stuff that you have to figure out with men, I find, except it has been tricky for me a couple of times where I have thought I had a friendship with a guy and they thought that I was being
flirtatious,
or that it was something that it wasn't.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part, right? When we're trying to explore those relationships, and and I can't say that I've never had like a friend that I was interested in, and like that was awkward and things like that, because like you don't know like how to approach that, and it took many years of like figuring out like how to actually communicate that, because it is one of those things that like there's always when you are a friend with someone of the opposite sex, like there's going to be a natural attraction to that person, I think, but is that like a relationship level attraction? Is like what kind of attraction are you having to this person? Is it be like, oh, like this person's attractive and like that's cool, or is it like I actually want to develop a deep connection with this person and have a relationship and actually like turn this into something more than just a friendship? And like I think one of my
not reciprocated, like, are you okay with that? Like, is it a strong enough friendship to just stay friends even if it's not reciprocated?
Yeah, and like how like so the best example for me, like after I've kind of did all of that internal work of like to be the person I am now, one of my best friends, like when I first met her, I was attracted to her. I was interested in her. Like I wanted to potentially have a relationship with them, and they just flat out was like, I don't want a relationship. And I was like, okay. So me on this side of the relationship, I had to ask myself a bunch of questions. I had to be like, can I just be friends with this person? If I'm staying friends with this person, what is my motivation? Like, am I trying to prove how good of a friend I am to maybe they'll like change their mind later? Is that my motivation? I'm like, no, that's not the type of person I am. I'm not going to do that. But a lot of people do. A lot of people like, well, I'll stay friends and like maybe they'll change.
It's great awareness though, because I think a lot of people do that when they don't even realize it.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like,
see?
Yes. Like, oh, like, so I had to ask myself a bunch of questions like, how do I want to show up in this relationship? Like, can I just stay friends with this person? Am I okay with that? And am I okay with processing the feelings that I did initially have with this person while being friends with them? Like, can't I just keep it like as a friend thing? And ultimately, yes. Like, I came to the conclusion, like, yeah, we can hang out. We would hang out pretty much like every Thursday for months, playing video games, just the two of us and like just hanging out, and they're one of my best friends, and like there's no like well maybe or anything like that. It's just we are friends, that's it. And when you are able to do that, like you can have much better relationships, and you have much better relationship with yourself too, because you understand what you want, right? Like if you want just a friend, like if you're okay with just having a friend, cool, like do that, like develop like the ability to process your emotions, to where you can be just friends if that person does not want anything more than friendship. Like just don't even think like there's a possibility, right? Because then you are somewhat trying to manipulate them, right? Like, and that's not cool.
Setting yourself up to ultimately probably get hurt too.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, like, it's not to say that like maybe a few years down the road you guys kind of have a different dynamic and things evolve and all that stuff, but you don't know. You have no idea if that's going to happen. And like you would want that to happen naturally if it does, and like you don't want to be in a friendship with someone hoping for that to happen.
Yeah.
And then if it never does, you're just going to build resentment. You know. And so there, like, and the thing is, like, if you don't want a friend, if you want a relationship, and you're like, you know, I just can't be a friend, like I can't just be a friend, like that's okay too. Like you're not being a dick by doing that. You're being honest and you're being truthful, and like you're not going to hurt yourself or that other person.
Yeah.
You know,
one of our followers was saying that they feel a lot more supported by content creators in their own community, and I definitely understand that. They were saying because there's no like mean girl tips, there's none of that passive aggression and that kind of stuff that you were saying. And I agree, like finding, and I think it's just been easier for us to find like minds in our most vulnerable state. Like we're in the general population, I'm just going to be Courtney, and then I'll kind of grab hints that people are like me and then kind of, you know, seek them out and stuff. But here, it's very clear who I am. It's very clear the people that I want in my space. And so it's just a quicker connection that way. And I feel like it's just a lot easier to find people that are like us, people that are safe, people that are just open and honest and welcoming. I think it's been super healing for me. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, I mean, I've been on the internet since the internet, you know, like, you know, and my first, like, you know, like the way that I was able to make friends was online, the earliest, like back in like middle school, right? Going into like MSN chat rooms, and I did like role playing channels, and like I was a weird kid. Yeah, I was a weird kid back then. No, it's not weird. It's just like back then it was being the weird kid, but like
I didn't know that there were role playing channels on the internet at that point. I only knew the in person stuff at that point.
Yeah, so there were role playing channels where like you would create a character and like you would create a story and like interact with people in character, and like it was like chat room LARPing almost, you know, and you know, and so yeah, like, and you know, I was a part of this channel that like was very active. It would have like 30 or 40 people in it pretty much all the time. And like that's where some of like my first friends that like I really connected with the most was online. And then, you know, like as the internet evolved, like getting introduced into like online gaming spaces, getting it, you know, when World of Warcraft came out, wow, like the MMOs and, you know, all of that stuff, like that was really my escape, because like I also went through a lot of trauma in my youth, and I think that also contributed to some of my behaviors. It wasn't all just like undiagnosed ADHD autism, but there was a lot of trauma too, and like I escaped a lot into the online world to kind of like help myself get through that. And, you know, it was my safe haven for that, you know, and I think that also contributed to a lot of like the growth that I was able to have too, because I was able to find genuine people that were good and kind and like, you know, didn't like judge me for the person that I was, you know, and like that genuinely like helped me grow and become a better person, and like seeing those examples of how people can be instead of just like drinking all the time and all of that.
Yeah. Huh. You and I have a very similar life trajectory. I feel like we could be friends. A lot of similarities there. When did you find out that you were neurodivergent?
2020.
2020.
So,
okay, a lot of people
yeah.
during like 2021 to or 2020 to 2022 pandemic.
Yeah.
So
hardcore pandemic times. Did that have anything to do with it, the pandemic, or is that just a coincidence?
I think that's more coincidence for me, because what happened, my path of getting diagnosed was I was in a relationship with a person and we broke up, and it was not a, like, it was an explosive breakup. And I started reacting like it was very hard on me, like harder than any breakup had before. And like I was really struggling to let go of that relationship. I was really struggling with my emotions, like I didn't eat for like a week, like because the stress was just so high. And I was like, this is not normal. Like this is not something that I do. Like what is going on?
Yeah.
And so like that's whenever I started doing research and like just kind of like typing in like what I'm experiencing. And funny enough, it actually led me to rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, because that's kind of like what I'm feeling. And then like ADHD. And so I was like, I always kind of had that like suspicion that like, you know, I recall just like few moments growing up, like, am I autistic? Like just those like having those like social hiccups that you have with people, and like, what is, like, how did I miss, like, what happened? Like I didn't understand that. Like, am I autistic? I don't know. And just kind of like keep going.
The same thing with ADHD so many times.
Yeah.
I would hear things on the radio of like, oh, if you've been addicted to the internet, then you have a 80% chance of having ADHD. And I would go, I wonder what ADHD is. I gotta Google that later. And then I would just get distracted.
Yeah. So so yeah, that happened around like the pandemic. And like my actual like first social media exposure to ADHD was actually on Facebook. I joined a Facebook group called We Have ADHD, that was ran by Jen Has ADHD, who is based out of New Zealand. And this was like a really big Facebook group, and I started like reading people's experiences and sharing mine. I'm like, holy crap, there's like thousands of people with the same story. And ultimately, like, I became a moderator of that group and was able to like talk with like a small group of people that were very like research focused and like finding out information. That kind of set me on my path of becoming a coach. And so yeah, like I went to therapy, and like my therapist was like, yeah, let's get you assessed for ADHD. We got it set, got diagnosed. Then a few months later, I'm like, something's missing. You know, like ADHD is like good, but like there's still some things. And she's like, well, me and your psychiatrist have been like talking, and we've been noticing some things, and yeah, let's get you assessed for autism too. I'm like, cool. All right. You know, so that was
sounds like you had a good therapist. Did they kind of clue you in on that stuff, or did you come in going, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD? What do you think?
It was kind of like me coming in and, you know, talking and like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And they were very open and receptive, and like they actually helped me in a lot of ways too, becoming a coach, because I expressed like I wanted to help educate people and stuff. And like there was a peer support specialist program, like a certification for that they're like, well, you have to get it was a free course that a local college was having, but you had to get referred to it to join in on it to get certified as a peer support specialist, because it's like a state certification type deal.
Yeah, and it's the confirmation that you actually have the disorder.
Yeah, and so my therapist actually like helped me get referred to, like get into that program, and then like they were like, if you want to come educate on ADHD to the addiction group that she had, I think it was called like an IOP, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm bad with acronyms, but like
no, that's right.
Yeah. So she had like an IOP group, and she's like, yeah, come educate on ADHD because there's a high correlation with ADHD and addiction. So like she actually was really supportive in helping me like become an educator and stuff like that, and start me on that path. So like, yeah, like I was very, very fortunate to have like a team of people that was very neuroaffirming and open and supportive and helping me, because like she straight up tells like, you know more about ADHD than I do. Like, like
therapists unfortunately are not trained in neurotypes. They're anything that's neurological, that's not what they're trained for. They're trained for finding problematic thinking patterns, and that's about it. Or like digging through trauma. But when it comes to identifying someone's neurological condition, no, there's no training for that.
She helped me realize a lot of things about myself, because and which helped me understand people more, because I think one of my big struggles growing up too is like when I would see problematic behavior in people, or like see people doing things that like I'd be like, and I would try to like help them and talk them through it, and like they would just continue that behavior, and like I'm like, why are you not changed? Like, what's going on? Like, this is bad. Like, why do you keep making that decision? And they'd be like, I don't know, and like it would frustrate me. Come to find out, like the ability to like recognize a behavior and then make immediate change is not a normal thing. Like, because like that's what I started doing, and like my therapist like, people don't do that. Like, I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like,
I'm impressed to be able to do that with ADHD, because honestly, that I feel like that's been my big. Since I've been medicated, I've been able to change my behaviors like almost immediately. But because when I'm unmedicated, I'm not even aware. I'm not even on this planet. My brain is always off in la la land, thinking about something that's not even relevant to my situation. So
I think
I don't know how you do that.
I think it's like the autistic brain side for me, because like
it's the logical side of the brain.
Yeah, because like I kind of treat myself like a program type deal. Like I very much use logic to help me figure out like, oh, like this behavior is not great. So like let's do a diagnostic on this behavior of what's the root of this behavior, like what's causing this behavior, where's the bug essentially of this behavior. Is it trauma, is it because I'm stressed, is it because whatever other potential variable, and like what can I do about it, and like what changes can I make to help myself. And like it's not a perfect practice, and like the more problematic behaviors were a lot easier to change, because I was like, oh, that's just like me projecting trauma or whatever, and I don't want to do that. So like I want to feel better about these things, and like I
think that people forget that when we're angry or upset, that it's a struggle for us. Like we don't want to be mean, we don't want to be angry, we don't want to lash out. And we should be accountable for our own behavior, but no one acknowledges that that is a struggle for us. It's not fun. So repairing it helps us too.
100%. Like a lot of the things, like how I felt and just like acted on, like I never really wanted, like I've always been the person, like I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to do things that are going to hurt people. But ultimately, like I think that's just something that unfortunately we do as humans. But I do my best to, like, and I wouldn't say fix, but like adjust myself to like mitigate as much harm as possible.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be perfect, and like every single person I meet will I'll get along with or whatever. But because just coming across someone that is still early in their healing journey, you know we're not going to get along, because I have done the healing. I see the projection. I see the hurt. I see all the things that I potentially have used to be. And I'm like, oh, I know where you are right now. And I sympathize, and I can care about you, but we're not going to be good for each other because you're not going to like me, because I'm going to like show you the potential of where you're probably going, but you're just not there yet.
Yeah. Two different
And
points.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's always that kind of struggle too. Like it's such a weird, unique place to be, because it's like I know like how I used to be and how I am now. And it's like, oh man. That's why I can look back at myself as like, that was, I wasn't like this horrible, terrible, monster of a person, but I can look back at myself and like, oh yeah, like I did some things that were not great, and I was like, oof, yeah. If I could have a conversation with past self, I'd be like, listen here, like let's go through some things.
I've also found that like with people who haven't excuse me, when I'm in the presence of somebody who hasn't done the work that I have, I can regress because I still have the inherent emotional dysregulation that's not going to go away because it's neurological. And my tools can only go so far. And so if I have somebody constantly pushing my buttons, I'm going to sink to their level at some point. And so that's the harm that I found in hanging with somebody who hasn't done that work, is like they can bring me down with them.
I think that's also part of it. I've developed some pretty strong boundaries and like beliefs and like how I function as a person to kind of help protect myself from that a bit, because like I'm very much on letting people have the autonomy to be themselves, and I make that decision whether or not who they are is allowed in my space, right? Like, if they continuously push buttons, then yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey, we're not good, and we're gonna separate. But if they push some buttons but they're receptive to like communication, that's different, right? Like, I had a
cool off for a second. Yeah, but there's some people out there who like, let's cool off for a second, triggers them even worse.
Like, I had a relationship where she did some things that were kind of like pushing some buttons. Like, like I would ask early on, like, hey, do you want to do something together? And I wouldn't hear from her until that evening. She's like, oh, sorry, I made plans. And I was like, hey, did you wait to respond to me to figure out whether or not you had plans before responding? And then if you couldn't make plans, you were going to have plans with like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Like, you tell me straight up when I ask you if you want to hang out or not. So you respect my time, and I respect yours. But like, and they were receptive to that. Like, but like that was a behavior that like they had, and I was like, okay, like, normally if they were not receptive to that, I wouldn't want to keep that person around that wouldn't respect things.
Right. Yeah. It was obviously not respectful of your time. Yeah.
Sorry, we're having a camera too hot situation. I tried to avoid this by putting a coolie pack, but I couldn't get the coolie pack to.
It's not even hot. I'm sure not because I was
Well,
just running too.
yeah, it's on 4K. I think it's because it's on 4K. But like, don't offer 4K if it's too hot for the machine. You know, you can't handle it. Sorry, hold on. I'm just gonna pull this off for a second. So let's not talk about anything.
It's not talk about anything important.
Okay, sorry. I can look at follower comments. Yeah, Ginger Murray said, same pandemic nursing broke my strategies.
Oh, nursing.
That'll do it.
God.
Melissa can relate.
Yeah. I wasn't a nurse during the pandemic, thankfully, but I can imagine.
I think that walking stereotype to e burnout group. Yeah. Yeah, but I have a theory that that autism ADHD people are mostly hypersensitive, and I think the hypersensitivity leads to a lot of intelligence, but also easy burnout. And that I think that's what also makes us prone to PTSD. We're just so affected by our environment that we use up our spoons real quick.
And then you throw stress and all, life on top of that. Just because autistic brains, they take in more, like they take in I think it's like 40% more information at rest than the average person. So if you have an autistic brain, even at rest, you're still taking in a lot of information. So, and we struggle to regulate cortisol, the stress hormone. So like,
is that an autism thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! I gotta look at that.
And then, if you're diagnosed both ADHD and autistic, and you struggle so you're taking in all this information constantly as an autistic person, and you struggle to regulate cortisol and stress. So, and then stress makes ADHD worse, because it exacerbates our ADHD, traits and symptoms. Then, like, if you're just experiencing a lot of stress, you're going to burn out a lot quicker. You're not going to function as well. So, like, regulating stress is one of those things that is really important for us. But
especially to avoid neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah, and one of the missions that I have, like, as an educator and coach, is like I started a nonprofit organization for ADHD people, because I feel that if I can figure out a way to support 3 different areas for an ADHD individual, I can probably help reduce a lot of stress in people and like help support people in a lot of different ways. So like, the first area is community, because we are isolated people. We tend to experience a lot of isolation. We struggle to make connections. So I host a peer support group every Sunday, and that helps build community. I have a Discord community, and like that's going to kind of like support one area. Another area is like resources in education for like different career paths. So like if you're stuck in a career path that you hate and is stressful, but you did it because that's the only thing that you knew how to do or whatever, like finding a new career path can be really challenging. And then the other one is like accessibility to coaching, which is like really helpful for like accountability, really helpful for just like that learning and actually like exploring some of those more difficult traits and things like that to handle, and like having someone there that can help you walk through all of that. Like, so if you're supported in those 3 ways, like,
how are you helping them access coaching?
So right now, because we are a new organization and we don't have like unlimited funds. We're looking to create coaching programs that are at least reduced cost. So we can have a low cost coaching program for people, probably focusing more on coaching groups instead of individual. So like having small groups of like 4 to 6 people, um, and which would include like some one-on-one time too. Um, and then as we grow as an organization, I would really love to be able to pay for people's coaching. So like have some form of way to people can apply to us to be like, hey, I either they get a coach through us, yeah, like a scholarship program or something. So like I do want to have like a list of coaches that I trust and know that are going to be neuroaffirming and like what they educate and teach is beneficial, because there's as we know, there's a lot of coaches out there that are not great, because either A, they're just a neurotypical person trying to educate ADHD and autistic people, or like their motivations are more financial than actually supporting and helping people.
Yeah,
and like
uninformed. Like my trainer, honestly, my trainer for my certification was garbage, useless. I don't know how but it's unregulated, so she can just create her own certification program.
and see, and that's why like I have the nonprofit, because like I want to find coaches that I trust and like actually have like probably some form of database, or something that can help. I know other people that are working on something similar, so I don't know if I want to do exactly what they're doing, but more so just like through Dueling Minds, we have a list of coaches that we're like, we trust these coaches, and you can have that like and have that open for people to choose one of them, or they can find someone themselves. If they find someone like, hey, I trust this person, and be like, okay. So just kind of something like that. So that's the big thing for me is I really want to help people become self-sustaining, because that's been my biggest struggle as just even someone that's late 30s struggling financially, was job hopping a lot, got fired a lot, burnt out a lot, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do what I'm doing, but like I want to help people become sustainable for themselves, because like so many people I came across come to me for like coaching or something like that, but they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I'm don't charge a whole lot.
Yeah. I'm preaching to the choir. I started my coaching practice like full time in January, and it was like it wasn't a lack of interest, it was a lack of funds. Everybody's we've all been so dysfunctional for so long. We're massively burnt out and in debt, and like it's to the point where everyone's just barely treading water. Nobody has any extra funds that's the problem. It's like all of the things to help you is an extra thing. Like even a housekeeper, like even if I had the money for a housekeeper, I still don't have the extra time to seek out a housekeeper, do interviews, do all the communication around payment and what hours you're coming, and all that's like you have to. Everything's an upfront investment if you want to change anything, and everybody's stretched to the last dime, and so nobody has any extra spoons or money to make that change. So we're all crumbling. Really,
100%. And like for me, like cooking, like it is a very big task. Like I've gotten a little bit better at it because I've been trying to develop this skill to be able to cook more and eat better. But like I know so many people that just don't have that spoon, to learn how to cook better for themselves. And
I know how. I just can't do it.
Yeah, or either they know how and they don't have the time, or like whatever. Like, from what I've been doing is like I have like a cycle of very few recipes that I just make over and over again, because I know how long it takes. It's simple, and I can make enough to where I can eat off of it for a few days, you know.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I do. But like and you know, but sometimes it still takes a lot of energy, or like I might go a week when I don't cook, you know. So it, you know, trying to find ways to help people and support them where they need it. So like and I know community is a big one, because you know, when we look at like the hierarchy of needs, which is, you know, kind of, someone posted about this in the Discord yesterday, but when we actually look at the origins of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's not actually what he discovered, because he went to the Blackfoot Nation and integrated himself into the Blackfoot Nation and watched them and learned from them, and their hierarchy of needs are different. Community is actually at the base. Like self-actualization is at the base. Sorry, yeah. So self-actualization is at the base of their, and it's not a pyramid; it's a TP. Whereas if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, needs, self-actualization's at the top. So like there's a big difference.
And I guess that if it's on the bottom, it's influencing all of the things you do. So those basic things are influenced by.
And it's a lot more community focused as well.
Yeah.
So like when we look at things like that, like community is such a big portion of healing and people, because like going back to my own experiences as an isolated autistic person, you know, if I had the right community, like my life definitely would have been different. My choices would have been different. I wouldn't have to have relied on media. I wouldn't have to have relied on the things that I did to rely on to figure out how to be a person, you know? And so that whole like individualism can be very harmful. Like if we get into that hyper independence, like I'm very hyper independent, like that's still something I struggle with. Like, you know, I'm getting a lot better at it because I'm, you know, trying to help people build community, and I'm trying to build community for myself.
Well, you're welcome. You have an official invitation to my sober living commune that I'm going to build on my ranch.
You know, it's funny like how many different groups of people that I know that are like, let's build a commune.
Yeah.
Like,
write them all down, send them my way.
There's so many. Like I'm down. Like I talk about like I would love to live in a commune, because like
with all my people.
Yeah, like
it's amazing.
It's with every like different types of people with different skill sets that can support each other where we need it, and also understand our like if we do need some like, you know, like isolation, like going to hermit for a day or two, like they're not going to bother us, you know, or tell us like, oh, come out and be social. Like, no, like I don't need to be right now. Like, okay, cool. You know, like
came out of their room.
Yeah, like it's, you know, that kind of community would be so vital. And like, of course that costs money, right? You know, it costs money to start things like that and to buy
upfront investment. But you know, at some point you get to a point where like you're growing your own food, you're you know, it becomes self-sustaining, you're everybody's practicing their hobbies and crafts that brings in income, but yeah, everything's an upfront investment, and the problem is that we don't know about these things. We aren't compelled to find them until we're already drowning, and that's what is. We're not in a society that celebrates and encourages prevention or you know, proactiveness. It's all reactive.
It's very like, you as an individual need to take care of yourself. Like you need to be able to do this, and the pull yourself up by the bootstrap kind of mentality, which is like hilarious to me that Americans adopted a saying of pull yourself up by your bootstraps as like a saying for American society, when the origin of that was a parody of American society. It was the UK making fun of the American society because it is impossible to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And then Americans were like, no, we like that. We're going to take it. We're going to adopt it. And it's going to be our pinnacle point of society. And like, everyone's going to do this. And like,
Yeah.
what?
It's kind of like the redneck thing. It's
How what?
totally taken on almost an
Yeah.
opposite conversation.
Yeah, it's just, it's so frustrating that, you know, we have this like hyper individual ideology that we have to do everything alone when community is such a big important thing, you know.
Yes.
And especially whenever you do look into like different cultures and like how they use community, you know, and it's incredibly important. It's wonderful to see that, and like I'm like, I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think part of it for America is it comes down to trust. So we've learned to distrust each other because of all of the corruption and abuse, but also because of, I blame it on marketing. Like, marketing is everywhere and it's 100% manipulative. And it's not even shy about how manipulative it is now. And everybody has an ulterior motive. Everybody wants something from you. Nobody is just genuine and wants to help you out. Like I'm discovering this more and more as I'm offering like free services for people. Like I built a whole resource library on my website just for people to like access studies that have to do with neurodivergence, so they could take them and talk to their doctor on them. And in the posts that I've made telling people that I have this, they're so skeptical and so like, what do you want from me? What are you selling? I'm like, geez, you guys, I'm trying to help.
Yeah.
But I can't blame them. That's our society right now. And it's a really tough nut to crack the other direction. You know, it's really hard to start building trust when distrust is so highly saturated.
Right.
100%.
And I think that's heightened for neurodivergent people too, because there have been times that most of us
taken advantage of,
or you can't sort of like sense when something is happening. Sometimes, you know, you get better at that as you get older, I think, but you know, and not really having a sense of community or knowing what that feels like, always kind of feeling like an outsider and isolated and alone. And it's like, it's a very hard thing to navigate and to kind of start slowly immersing yourself and trying to find little bits and pieces of community here and there to finally be like, okay, like, but is this really okay? Yeah, like like the trust issue is real. It can be really, really an impediment.
I mean, how many of us had a person in our lives pretend to be our friends, you know, and then when they were around other people, bullied us, you know, like that kind of thing, you know, or the whole like someone fake asking you out. That happens to a lot of neurodivergent people. You know, there's so many things that we experience, that really do affect our trust, which I think also leads to our isolation. You know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And which
and it's sad because it's just so unhealthy, and I don't know, it's a snowball effect, and I hate seeing it happen to my most precious people.
Yeah.
Gotta take care of each other first.
Yeah, we become vulnerable, and then it is those really toxic communities that do prey upon, you know, autistic, you know, neurodivergent, ADHD, autistic people that are isolated. I mean, there's a very real concern of the isolated autistic person to white supremacist pipeline, you know, because of that. Because, like, again, they're offering community, they're offering answers, they're pointing their emotions to a problem. Like, oh, it's not you, it's them. And it's very much
giving them an easy way to deflect their wishes. So of course they're going to go there than a place where they actually have to do the work.
Yeah.
Yep. And
I
I
think
think
also, sorry,
Go
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's kind of akin to, I think it's been kind of talked about. I don't know if there's any actual proof of this, but that autistic people and maybe ADHD people as well are more prone to getting into a cult type of situation
yeah.
or a very intense religious sect, all of these things where it's like, oh, this is an automatic, like, ready-made community, and we have all of these rules, and here's how you're supposed to act, and here's how you're supposed to dress, and here's who you're supposed to talk to. And it's just like, I think for someone who is seeking that but doesn't know how to get it, that's a very comforting thing of like, oh, these people all accept me and love me, and I have all the rules here.
Yeah, they're all laid out for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's that also struggle of understanding the social cues of like really discerning like when someone is being nefarious, like or non-genuine, like they're not being genuine in what they're doing. So like that is that kind of difficulty when it comes to being an autistic individual that kind of struggles to pick up on that stuff. And yeah, like you said, like gets that the rules that like it's like, oh, you're safe in this little box of rules, and as long as you exist that you have people.
Yeah.
And
And we
then
like you, and we want you here. Yeah, you're awesome. And just do
Yeah.
these things that we tell you.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do.
Yeah. A formula for getting friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if they also, I wonder if it's also like you said, I wonder if that audience is, if there's a lot of overlap with like the dating coaches that we see, the male dating coach thing.
Yeah.
Where,
I mean, especially from a male
know that you like her kind of thing.
especially from a male perspective, where we are taught, that we need to be masculine, that we need to be the strong person, we need to be this provider, and that our value is directly tied to our productivity, our finances, and being this rock, this pillar where, like, all they have to do is like lean on us for like, women have to lean on us to support, and like they don't need to do anything. We can take it because we're the man. Like that's like the idea. Yeah, the alpha. Like, and so it's so easy to kind of like fall into that mindset of like, oh, like, yeah, as long as I provide and and do all these things that these alpha dating coaches are telling me, then women are just gonna line up, right? Like they're just gonna yeah, and like that's not how, like, but they're not taught emotional intelligence. They're not taught how to actually talk to people and like connect with them and build a connection, and it's all very one-sided.
Like, hey, I'm not for everybody, but I know how to recognize people that I am right for, and so I don't waste my time chasing after people who are just not for.
And that leads to like, oh, if a women they're just playing you, or they're this or that because like they show a little skin, or everything that they do is for attention. They're all manipulative, and like, so if a woman doesn't appreciate your advances, then like they're just loose, and like
Something wrong
it's
with
like,
them. Couldn't be that
yeah.
they're just not good for you.
Yeah.
It's not-
It can't-
Look at that.
yeah, again, it's like it's always the projection of like they're the problem, not like, oh, maybe there's just like a legitimate reason we're not compatible, or maybe I'm an asshole and I need to change. Like there it's there's a lot less self-reflection in that, and it's so much easier to make it everyone else's problem. And like I've come across that in the groups that I run. Like very seldom does it happen, but I do remember like I had one person that like because in my Discord we have places where people can ask for advice, or they can they can seek like emotional support, or if they just want to like yell into the void about something, they can yell into it without being responded to. But like someone was asking for advice because they were getting frustrated that a person wasn't responding to their text messages quick enough for them, you know, and like they were taking a while to respond. And I'm like, have you ever thought about that they're busy and they're doing things and like they're not actually owed you a response, and like you need to learn how to, you know, like process that and like be okay with them not responding to you. And like they got super mad and like, you're invalidating me and all this stuff. Like I'm like, no, I'm trying to give you a perspective of like, hey, like maybe you need to like look into like why it's so annoying and frustrating for you, and like if you can like respect them as an individual and their time, and like they couldn't grasp it.
See, and I don't understand the anger behind that sort of thing, because for me, like, exercising empathy and understanding that somebody has other things to do and they're busy and it's not, that's a relief to me, because I'm like, oh, it's not that they hate me. It's just that,
Yeah.
you know, they're busy and, you know, they have a job or whatever.
I think part of it was like what they were texting about was something like they were like collaborating on or something. I don't remember all the details, but like so it was like a thing that was important to them, and so that I think added to the anxiety of not getting responded to, of like, hey, this is important, there's an urgency to it for me and this person, and so they probably felt like that person didn't care, right? Because like that I've felt that in the past, right? Like when I was in my most trauma of like, oh, like they don't think this is as urgent it is for me, but like they don't know how urgent it is for me. So I was trying to like lead them into that thought process of like, hey, this is urgent, it's important to you, I get that. However, they're an individual with their own time, with their own needs, with their own stuff, and like you need to learn how to navigate both, right? Like yes, it can be an urgent thing for you, but you need to be able to communicate with that person in a way that also respects their time.
Sure. And maybe the fact that they're not also urgent means that it isn't as much of a priority to them. And that's not a personal attack. That's just, it's just a circumstance. So just find somebody else who is as passionate as you
and they could,
or adjust your expectations. But we don't have to take it personally.
100%.
Well, and speaking of that, I wanted to know if you had any tools or things that have helped you not take things personally, because honestly, like, you're talking about a whole lot of self-reflection and a whole lot of really difficult change later in your life too, which, you know, is more difficult. So I wonder if there's something that's helped you avoid absolute total like devastation meltdowns every time you decide to change.
So this actually kind of ties into like rejection sensitivity dysphoria and like how I view it, because like I think that for me was a big portion of that was like how I broke it down was there was trauma involved, right? Like there's that fear of abandonment, there was the, you know, just like a lot of bad relationships, and you know, so like I would kind of use my past experiences in current relationships, which was not fair to those people. And then, you know, there is that rejection sensitivity, which like, you know, when we look at rejection sensitivity, it's in the DSM, it's attributed to anxiety, depression, ADHD, and multiple things. So there is that real thing. So like what is happening in that? So like there's an emotional dysregulation. So like I learned how to regulate my own emotions, you know, and like, and check in with myself. If I start feeling like I'm taking something personally, you know, I'm like, I check in, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling emotions, like what's going on there? And
do
then
you have like diffusing it, or do you go, okay, pause on this while I process my emotions, or how do you usually deal with that?
you know, when I was learning it, it was very much of like processing the emotions was really important to me, because it was like, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is the logic behind it? Like, are they just busy? Are they, you know, what is the story that I'm creating? And is that story true? You know, and like if I'm creating a story, like what can I say or what can I communicate with this person to help me clarify my story? Like, so if I'm feeling a certain way, like, is that a true statement? And if it's not a true statement, then what clarity do I need? Um, a lot of it was just kind of removing my own ego, like, because that also kind of got in the way a lot, was like, oh, like, when
That's easier said than done, though.
It
Like,
is,
how do you
it
do
is.
that?
That one is a process, right? Like, going through like that ego death, going through, doing a lot of shadow work, doing a lot more introspection, and looking at things of like, where are you inserting yourself into things? How are you centering yourself in things? What is actually important and what isn't important? Like,
Center yourself in things. I
you
like
know,
that. It's really neat.
like for me, how people perceive me is not more important than the actions that I take. So going back to like, how am I allowing autonomy in others? Is I allow autonomy in others however they decided to express that. So if they want to perceive me a certain way, I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to try to change their mind. I'm not going to take it personally, because they are choosing to only see me a certain way. And it's not worth my time or energy to try to convince them otherwise. And it's more important to me to continue being the person that I know myself to be.
So how do you, and I that is something that I've also learned. But the part where I find that it is conflicting is being an influencer. So when I get trolls, there are certain trolls that I feel like are just a lost cause, because they're just blurting out aggressive sound bites and not listening to anybody. And it's like, okay, we'll just block them. But then there's ones that I feel like are acting out because they're triggered, because they have like associated trauma, or they just have misinformation. Like, a lot of people get at me for like being a drug pusher or something, because they think that Adderall is meth,
Yeah.
and that I'm trying to get kids hooked on meth, and so how do you define the line between I'm not going to engage and I do want to try to make a difference and be an impression on this person?
So when we look at like debates and like trying to change someone's mind, it's always going to be a losing battle. If you are going into a situation like that trying to change that person's mind, you are never going to win. But if you are going into that situation of informing them and letting them choose to use that information, then that's the best you can do, and the only thing you can do. So it's, if a person comes to me and was like, oh, like ADHD meds are meth, I'm like, no, it's actually not. Like, I'm going to give you the information
Here are
of
the
why,
statistics.
why it's not. And then if you keep yelling at me, I'm like, okay, then you are not listening to me, and I'm going to move on to people that are going to listen to me, because you can't change that person's mind. They already made it. You can inform them, you can give them all the information you want, but they're not going to change. Now, if you want to put extra effort and energy into it, start asking them questions, being curious with people.
Genuine questions, not condescending leading questions.
Exactly. like figure out why they believe the thing that they believe and explore that, and be willing to have a conversation with someone. Because if you're just sitting there trying to debate someone and saying like, no, you're wrong, no, you're like, and you're just trying to prove each other wrong, like, you're not going to win.
Right.
You have to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think sometimes they're willing to have the conversation and sometimes they're not. The people that are not, you can't do anything about it, and you just have to walk away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big fundamental value that I have has really changed how I'm able to interact with people, and that is, I just don't believe in debate anymore. I only believe in discussion. And to me, the difference is in a debate, it's like court. You have a lawyer who's hired to have this one opinion, and their life is on the line to support the opinion, whether they personally believe it or not. Regardless of what new information is presented, they're expected to hold this opinion. And so you just have two opinions until one person wins or loses. And instead, everything should be a discussion, like you said, where we're both on the same team trying to find a solution. And in that, like, there's nothing at stake. There's no egos. There's no, like, in a debate, you've invested your entire, like, identity and your pride, right? And if you lose, it's the end of the world. But if you're in a discussion where we're all just looking for a solution, there's nothing at stake. There's nothing personal, like, oh, new information is brought to us. Great. How do we feel about it? There's, your ego is not in the middle of it.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on a big part of it is when you are debating someone, it is a part of their identity, right? Like what they're debating is a part of who they are. And when you're trying to prove someone wrong, you're challenging their identity. And you're not going to have someone go through an identity crisis and challenge their identity and grow in a debate. Like that's just not going to happen. No. Yeah, like you're not going to change someone's core, self.
Yeah.
But you can inform, huh?
You might plant
a seed, but I think like you were saying, it's definitely done with knowledge.
But it's definitely done with like, give the information. Yeah. So I can relate to this on a different thing because I'm vegan and I've had a lot of. Not us that you're vegan. Us that you guys get so much hate and I don't understand. I've had a lot of discussions where I've just been trying to inform. Like they'll ask me, "Why are you vegan?" and then they don't like my answer. So I think it maybe triggers something in them. But I've had people, I've just given the information and then been like, I don't want to fight about this. Like, this is not, but you're planting a seed. And I've had people come back around to me and been like, I actually researched that thing you said. It could be months later. And so it's like, okay, well, planting a seed to me is always worth it. But getting yourself invested to the point where you're arguing and bumping heads and debating somebody, yeah, you're right. It never works. It's like,
a personal attack is not going to change anyone's life. Like, you calling me a stupid idiot is not going to make me go, oh, wow, I should rethink my politics.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a horrible person for eating meat. Like, you're not. You just maybe, like, here's the information that caused me to look at this differently. Maybe it'll do the same for you. Maybe it won't. Like, no judgment. Take it if you want it. Don't take it if you don't want it. Like,
I have flipped a couple of trolls just from, like you said, asking genuine questions of like just being like, why is this so triggering for you? What did something happen? I get a lot of them on my my late diagnosis trauma video because it's about late diagnosis and all the stuff you missed out on and like, oh my gosh, my life could have been so different. Now I get that it was a different time and there were a lot of men who were diagnosed young and still didn't get the proper care. And that's very triggering for them to see me talk about my late diagnosis, woe is me, because they're like, well, I was early diagnosed and I don't have anything great going on. And so I've been able to just dig in there and be like, tell me about your struggle. Like, I know my struggle isn't the only one, so let's talk about it. You have a space here. And that's kind of just like let their guard down and let them process it. And then they end up on my team,
Yeah, like
we're getting longer. I know I could talk to you for probably 8 hours straight, and we'll have you again sometime. But how can people find you and engage with you and your community?
Predominantly right now, I am on Threads because it is low effort. Well, I shouldn't say low. I mean, it is low effort. It doesn't take as much spoons as making videos. But I'm also on Twitch as well. I stream 3 days a week. Sometimes
and both
more.
Are ADHD Druids.
Mm-hmm. I'm everywhere. ADHD Druids. I am also on TikTok. I am on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. I haven't been posting as many videos lately, but like that is in the plans to start making more video content again. The big thing that I mostly do is I do live streams and I will also do like Q&As during a live stream for people can come ask me questions, and I'll post that on YouTube. I also run the peer support group that meets every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central. You can, if you go to any of my socials, my link tree has pretty much everything in it. I have a Discord, and yeah, the nonprofit. So like I'm in a lot of places. I'm doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
okay, great. Yeah, so it's ADHD Druids, and go to his link in his bio for all of the things. Do you want to stick around for? We have 2 segments coming up. Do you have to go, or you want to stick around? And do questions with us.
I can do some segments.
Okay. So our first segment today is brand new. It's Neurodivergent Confessions. So I wanted to do this one because I feel like one of my favorite things to do as an influencer is to talk about all the uncomfortable, icky, embarrassing stuff that has to do with neurodivergence and watch people get relief from that, because I feel like they've been waiting their whole lives to hear somebody else say that they do that. I think it's just so healing. So, I wanted to just kind of throw myself under the bus for that cause. Do you want to go first? Do you have one?
You go first.
Well, I pick my nose. And these are not fun for me to say, but there's a bit of relief because I know y'all aren't going to judge me. And even if you do, we can laugh about it. And I know you're not going to be like, ew, she's disgusting. I'm not going to follow her anymore. In fact, I used to be a bit of a wiper. And this was not that long ago.
I love this. This is my new favorite segment.
Like if you turn over that desk over there, just don't. So.
Me as a germaphobe over here being like, I'm not touching anything in your house.
Oh,
It
no.
has been cleaned since, but there's still stains.
There's still stains.
And like my old car seat down here, that's if you're driving,
Yeah.
Anyway.
A good old pick while you're driving.
Sometimes it feels good, right? Like
It
there's
does.
like a relief.
There's dopamine in grabbing a good one. And,
Yeah, like I get congested a lot, so I get it. Like it's just
I just had sinus surgery, and I've just had sinus problems my whole life. And sometimes you get one that like feels like it's coming from your brain, and you're like, oh, that's so much better.
It's the nurse in me where you blow your nose and you gotta look at it.
Yeah.
Like, normal color consistency. It's good. You gotta check it out. Oh my gosh, that's a good one.
Okay, your turn.
My turn. Okay, mine is kind of on the bodily function scale too, and this relates to neurodivergence because there is a link between digestive issues and neurodivergence, particularly autism. And I've been diagnosed with IBS since I was 20. I think I got diagnosed with that, but for several years before that, I was having like digestive problems. And man, the situations that have arisen from me having like a sudden blowout flare up, where you're in a very inconvenient place to all of a sudden your stomach's like, I'm going to have intense cramps right now, and there's going to be a emergency soon. And to the point where you're like, one time I got pulled over by a cop because I was speeding home because I was going to like poop my pants if I did not get home. And then I get pulled over and I had to tell the officer, like, I'm sure he could tell I was probably like sweating. I was like, I just really need to get home. I need to go to the bathroom. He thankfully was like, where do you live? I'm like, 1 minute away. I was like almost there. And he's like, be careful, go ahead. He was probably like, I don't want to see this girl poop my pants, So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to having to like sort of
emergencies.
Whenever you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm always having to like assess, like, is there a bathroom near? Where are all the bathrooms? Am I, last weekend we went camping and there were no bathrooms. And I'm like, well, hopefully I don't have a flare up this weekend because I really don't want to have diarrhea in the forest. So
yeah, no kidding.
It's one of those things. Confession.
Yeah. All right. ADHD druids.
I'm trying to think. It's one of those things that's like you ask me and then like the brain just goes blank.
You got etch a
Like,
sketch.
I've never done anything ever in my life, and
I am perfect. I have no confessions.
Yes,
That's what I was
no
thinking. I'm like, I can't
confessions,
think
yeah.
of anything.
I guess this. I
Do you have
mean,
any like small struggles, like basic struggles? Like I know a lot of people like I don't brush my teeth every day. I don't shower every day because.
I mean, yeah. There's the showering. I don't shower every day. In fact, I haven't showered today. There, but there's that. I think that's, you know, I. It's kind of like one of those others like if I know I'm going to leave my house, I have to shower. Like I can't be out of my house not showered, because like I can feel it, right? Like, and I have that self-conscious of like, do I stink? Like that kind of thing. I think that is one.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. I think another, and this can kind of go with like some of the conversation that we had prior, especially like being male, is like with intimacy. I think that with ADHD, it can be a challenge, right? To be interested and stay interested.
Yeah.
And
mind wander.
yeah, and so like that can be a struggle. There are different ways to kind of help you stay interested, which that Venn diagram, that's really more of a stack of pancakes of different interests, with like neurodiversity and other things. So like, yeah, and like the kink community, and so there's a lot of overlap to that. So
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Are we sorry? For some reason, TikTok just randomly decided to end my session.
Oh, there we go. It's back.
Okay, we're back. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have a second one? So,
Okay, yeah, go.
I gotta look up this. I have a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Oh God, I've never told anybody this.
Oh, this is gonna be a good one.
It's
All
really,
right.
it's not that bad, but it's weird.
Oh, okay. I like it. We're keeping it weird.
Okay, so okay.
You can do it.
Any bread-like product that I eat, whether it's bread, crackers, chips, something of that consistency. I wish I could just.
I don't know where this is going.
I have no idea. Yeah, like I am very invested now.
Me too. I'm like, where's this going?
I will.
We will
chew
look at you.
Gross. I will chew it up into like a mush, and I will put it. I will stash it up into my upper lip and smash it over my teeth.
Oh my god. Okay, that is kind of obscure.
I don't know why I am addicted to that feeling. I have no clue.
So it's a sensory thing for you.
Yeah,
because
sensory.
It's a texture stim.
That is. I wonder if anyone else out there will be like, I do that too. That would be
That is
really.
very-
That'd be great.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Thank you for being so vulnerable, Courtney. I don't think that's
Thank you for
that
being good
weird.
company.
But it is sort of like a thing
It's
that's
just so
weird to
gross to say,
where you're
yeah.
like, this is a thing that
Yeah.
I do. Don't know why.
Yeah. I have a few of those where it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that gross, but
Yeah.
to say it is just sounds really disgusting.
Yeah.
People might look at you differently.
Yeah, I totally do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you a new co-host. It'll be fine.
I was done. You had me at the bread and crackers. Okay.
Try it with the baked glaze. You'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's for me, but
I don't even remember why I did it the first time. I think I had to take a pill or something, so I just stashed it up real quick and take the pill, and then it was like, ooh, that feels nice.
oh my god, that's so funny. Okay, my second one is that I have bad credit.
Oh.
And I've had bad credit since I became an adult. And I've been trying for decades to repair the credit. And I always get into a circumstance where the credit inevitably goes bad again. And I think this
Yep.
relates a lot to the ADHD side of my brain, that I'm very okay. So this is where the ADHD autism brains collide, because I'm very organized with my bills and stuff. Like, I have spreadsheets and all that stuff going on. But then there's the ADHD side of my brain that sometimes loses track of time. I don't know what portion of the month we're in. Most things, since online banking and auto withdrawal has become a thing, that has made my life so much easier. But back in the day when you had to write a check, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, send it in, make sure it gets there in time, make sure you balanced your checkbook so it doesn't overdraw. Like, all my whole 20s was spent with that struggle.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's been a thing. I've been really working hard on it the past like 5 to 7 years, and it's really hard to rebuild your credit. Like,
It is. It's
It is.
crazy. It's crazy how the tiniest little thing will affect your credit.
It
And
is.
it's bizarre too. It's like, that doesn't reflect how responsible I am at all.
And the things that you do pay, Gray and I were just talking about this. I'm like, cell phone bill every month, rent every month, like things that you pay for consistently don't even count towards your credit score. Where I'm like,
No.
I pay all of these things though. It will count towards your credit if you don't pay them.
Yeah.
But if you do pay them, nothing happens. So
We should be able to get accommodations for credit.
it's a big yes.
It's a disability.
Let's lobby
folks.
for that. But it's a big source of shame for a lot of people to have bad credit, because it's, for me, I'm like, I'm not an irresponsible person. I don't overspend. I'm trying, but it's hard. It's really hard to keep your ducks in a row sometimes. And it is when you go to like buy a car and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to run your credit. And you're like, all right. And you're just like, I'm not a horrible person. I swear. I pay my bills. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
And when you start out, you have no credit. And it's like, how does that make sense? I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, and
It's
as a
just
young
so
adult,
dumb.
like, nobody taught me about credit,
Yeah.
and I got myself into trouble with a bunch of credit cards right when I moved out, and it was like, then it's like, you can't pay them off. My daughter's sitting here, my teenage daughter is sitting here. That's why I try and teach my kids things, because it's like, no one ever told me,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
yeah, and then it's just so inconvenient to have bad credit too, so, yeah, that's my position.
Yeah, well, you are in a large company.
I'm sure, yeah.
I relate to that. I have bad credit. I've had bad credit for a very long time. I guess like my kind of addition to that confession is like I'm really bad with this money in general. Lately, it's not been by choice because I don't know how to make money. like as just like me, like I think it's not that I don't understand the concept to make money, but it's more of like implementing the things I need to do to make money, because oftentimes those things make me feel gross.
Yes. Well, that's capitalism
so-
for you.
Yeah, so like I struggled
You have to be, in order to be successful, you almost inherently have to do it on the backs of other people.
yeah. So like
where does that leave us?
I struggled to make money for that reason. So like I'm constantly broke. Like I
Same.
have not been financially secure since my late 20s. Like, because that's whenever I was working as a manager and making good money and all of that stuff, and like I had a good stable job. But being my own like business owner type deal, like I'm really bad at making money because I do a lot of things for free. I want to actually help people. I don't want to just like commodify everything. And part of that too is like I struggle to even just ask people to pay for things like doing like a Patreon or Ko-fi or like all those like content creator stuff. Like like I struggle to do any of that stuff, and like I know I need to, because like the lifestyle that I'm choosing, like I need to do things that are going to help me make money. And then like when the really frustrating part is like when I feel like I'm getting to a point where I can have like a business pay me money. Like on Facebook, I started like I got monetized on Facebook, and then I was making like my first month I made like $300, which was nice. I was like, okay, that's most the social media's ever paid me in a month.
Yeah.
So maybe I can make something of this. As soon as
Facebook's way better than TikTok.
like I got monetized on text content along with video content, my reach dropped to like nothing. So like, and it's really disheartening. It's partly why I haven't been making a lot of content lately, is because all the platforms that I used to have like good reach to where like I could make money off of, all my reach just went away. And so
Is that
that's
because the videos can have more ads scrolling while you're watching?
so I don't know. I don't know what happened. Like, so because Facebook will monetize text content and video content and also lives. So they'll monetize you in 3 different ways. And I got access to video content and then live content and then text. And as soon as the text one hit, my reach just dropped. And so for everything. And like, so it's really frustrating because like I'm trying to find ways to where like I can make money without exploiting people.
I'm in the same boat, friend. It's so difficult.
You know, so like
how do you reconcile that? It's not like, oh well, I need to do this better. It's like, well, I'm not doing it because I don't believe in that.
Yeah. So like it is really difficult, and it's and like that's also why like I'm trying to become a voice actor as well as doing other things, because like I'm like, or like in a public speaker, like I want to do public speaking and voice acting and things like that, because I'm more than willing to have someone pay me that has a budget to come educate or public, do speaking gigs, and then or like be a voice actor. Like I'm okay with that. Like I just know that I can never go work for a job working for someone else, or like for something that means nothing. Like more power to people that can. Like I just know, like I burn out very quickly, and it would not leave me any energy to do the things that I'm doing, and I believe in those things. So like that's also, I guess, part of the confession is like I can't work a normal job. Because if I do, I will burn out. I'll get super depressed, and I don't want to be in that space again.
Yeah, that's most of us. And at least you're advocating for yourself. A lot of people are just staying in it because what else? They don't feel like.
And it's why I'm doing the nonprofit that I'm doing, because like I know that I barely made it, and I know a lot of people are suffering. So it's like if I can help them, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And the next section is 6 days hot takes. I know we're gonna hot takes right now.
Oh, we're just doing one hot take.
Okay, yes. Okay, so now we have safe space hot takes. I think we've done this a couple of times, but I have so many hot takes. I'll never run out of hot takes. By the way, I have bare feet, yes. And I actually put toenail polish on, so you're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm barefooted too, so it's all right.
One of my confessions is I don't wear shoes almost ever. Okay, so safe space hot takes is really just give us your unconventional opinion on something, because this is a safe space for that, and no one's gonna come after you for it. Because I know a lot of us, we don't follow a lot of traditional norms, and that can be offensive to some people. So my first hot take, and honestly, like, this should not be a hot take, but for some reason, every time I bring it up, people poo-poo it and like are skeptical and whatever. I don't think there should be any money allowed in political campaigns. I think it should all be word of mouth, and you get one page in the voter guide, and you get one section on the government website where we all go to look at the candidates. And that's it. You don't get to run ads. You don't get to send out teams. It's all word of mouth. And if we really like somebody, we'll tell each other.
Amazing.
And
Also,
not-
can we get more than one candidate, please, for each party?
Can we just,
Right.
like, stick with the whole party thing and just
Or
like,
that.
vote for who we want.
Or vote for who we want? I don't know.
That's a
Yeah.
little more difficult.
There's
But anyway,
political stuff we do on things, right? But yeah, that is a good one. That's a hot take.
it's so easy to implement immediately,
Uh-huh.
but none of the politicians will vote for it because they all benefit from that,
Right?
and that's it's the entire basis of corruption in our country.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Money.
I was going to say vote for it in 2020, but it's a
Don't.
whole damn name. That's good.
I'm gonna write you in.
All right.
Okay, my hot take. Okay, and I have angered some people with this hot take because I talked about it on my podcast a couple of months ago, and a lot of people got real mad. But a lot of people also really related to my side of it. So I'm gonna keep on having this stance on this
Where's
because
the sun?
I believe in it. Is that you do not have to consume media that is damaging to your mental health.
Oh gosh, no.
Oh, yeah.
So what I talked about in my podcast episode was the fact I didn't name any specific situations, but just there are things going on in the world right now that I cannot tolerate knowing about or looking at or watching. I see bits and pieces here and there. Yes, I'm aware of things that are happening, but I think I really reached the conclusion during quarantine and the whole thing that happened with George Floyd, and then all of the things that unraveled after that for the Black community, that had me in such an emotional tizzy.
I'm still burnt out from that.
And I was posting, and I was, people, I appreciate the fact that some people can consume and they can post and they can spread awareness and stuff, but I learned for myself that, and that's the same reason I left vegan activism, because when I first became a vegan, I was so hardcore into educating everyone and posting and and learning everything I could. And it's so exhausting to see all of these atrocities and know that there's nothing you can do. There's really not. Like, I'm
Vote.
sorry, vote.
But we're already gonna vote.
Vote, but like reposting things on social media. I'm sorry, I know people are gonna get mad at me for saying this because it's already happened. But reposting a horrible video of someone getting blown up on social media isn't gonna do anything.
Yeah, and
It's just not, in my opinion. That doesn't make a change, and I'm not doing it.
yeah,
I'm
I
not doing it.
100% back you up on this, and I was just thinking about this the other day about how, like, as an influencer, I know there's a segment of the population that believes that because I have a platform, I should have an opinion about
Yes.
whatever is going on, and I should speak out about it. And it's like, I don't have all the facts, and I don't know all the nuance around what's going on. Well, you should find out.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm already burnt out with all of my other crusades that I'm
Yes.
fighting. So, like, I respect your passion and opinions and stuff, but, like, that's not for my platform, and sorry. So,
And you know what people say to that? Well, that is your privilege coming out.
Sure.
I've had people say that too, and I'm like, yeah, I'm aware. I'm very privileged, but
It's
also I'm
privilege
aware.
is the same reason that I bought this instead of feeding African children. You know what I mean? Like, where was the line?
Yeah, it's really tough. Where I'm just like, guys, I know myself, and I know that consuming this type of thing, and even the act of learning more about it, I'm too emotionally sensitive of a person. And that doesn't mean that I don't care. It means that I care a lot.
Yeah, it's going to ruin your day. And
Yeah.
what good did that do? What progress did that make?
It didn't do it.
My thing with that is because I relate to that because what happened with George Floyd, like that also really affected myself, and that made me realize how hyper empathetic I was. And with the current things going on, especially in Palestine, like I know that I am hyper empathetic and I can't consume a lot of that content. And because like if I'm incapacitated because I'm burnt out and unable to function because of, because that's a neurodivergent thing, right? Because of the hyperempathy, emotional dysregulation, and becoming like emotionally burnt out, which then leads to compassion and fatigue and things like that. So we don't want to end up in that space. And so like if that happens, I can't do anything. I'm unable to do anything. So what I do is like, how can I show up in those situations to where that even though I can't engage with everything, what can I engage with that's going to protect myself to where I can do something? Because like that justice sensitivity in me is like, I feel like I need to do something. I feel like I should be doing something. And there is that privilege too, because like, there's that line of like, okay, yes, I'm getting emotionally dysregulated by watching this video, but that is actually like someone's getting blown up. Like, so like that's another thing that I have to like reconcile is like, okay, so maybe I can experience a little emotional dysregulation to do something, to elevate a voice, to help raise funds for a family, or do something. Because I've seen other people that are really big advocates even talk about that, like being an advocate is exhausting. Like you need to have the mental fortitude to be an advocate.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job.
It's not for
and
everyone.
and it doesn't pay you.
And so like, if you struggle with being an advocate in that capacity, it's like, okay, what can you do to at least support the people that can?
Yeah, for sure.
And
And
I
that
think if you
needs to
put
be
it that
enough.
way, yeah. And
It's
yes,
not a
that
job.
does need to, because, again, the people that are like, everyone should be doing this is like, well, like if people are getting burnt out and they're incapacitated and they go into compassion fatigue, like they're not helping anyone anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
and here's the thing: like, you don't get to choose how I show my support for something. I've had people DM me and say, I'm not going to follow you anymore because you're not posting about this." I'm like, you don't know what I'm doing over here.
Yeah.
I could be donating money to certain things. I could be emailing my representatives. Just because I'm not posting every day about the atrocities of the world on social media, that's not what I want to use my social media for. And I personally don't think any of that helps. I'm sorry, I just don't, because I did it, and all it did was burn me out and make me feel really, really hopeless about the world. And, you can't always assume that someone's not doing anything just because they're not posting about it on social media. So it's...
And what if they were already, like, blowing all their spoons on some other really honorable cause? You just don't know. You don't know people. I really, really try not to judge other people at all. Because you just don't.
I think there's some very valid criticism for certain groups of people that do not use their platform or don't do anything, but your regular, like your kind of everyday content creator that I agree. Like you don't know how they are interacting, like, are they doing other things, like I don't expect people to talk about it every day type deal. But like if there's a platform that has millions of followers and they're just actively ignoring, like, and actively not doing something, then I can understand there's a criticism there. Like, hey, you have millions of followers, you have influence. Just one video would make a difference, raise that awareness, like that kind of stuff. Like, especially when we're dealing with so many different things. So like, it's a really difficult thing to navigate at times, because, when we're looking at so many atrocities happening, like it's hard. It's just really hard.
It's part of the black and white thinking, and it's really difficult to move away from that. It's really difficult, especially when our own guilt is involved, because that justice sensitivity. And there's so many, like, one of the very difficult things that I've had to kind of grapple with is, like, there is so much suffering in the world. It's not, we're in hell. I mean, in order to live, we have to kill. By by nature. I gotta kill plants. At the very, very minimum, I gotta still kill plants. What if I love plants? You know, plants are living beings, you know. They detect when someone is after, and they put out defenses. So like, and if you get caught up in every single battle, you're gonna burn yourself out immediately. So we have to find parameters for ourselves and draw our own lines to protect ourselves, because it's a disability. Again, it's a disability. So we only have so many spoons, and we need to look out for ourselves.
It's take care of yourself, but still find ways to show up. You know, I think that's the whole thing. Is like, I get it that it can be overwhelming and like that it can be difficult, but like find some way to show up. You know, and I don't believe that everything that you do needs to be broadcasted on social media. Because that, you know, you get people that are doing it for social media, right? Like they do something kind, or they do something in a way that like they want to make it into content, you know, like
look at Pride Month and look at every corporation ever.
I
really care about gay rights,
you know, because
not just another marketing ploy for you.
You know, I've done fundraisers for families in Palestine. I've done things outside of social media for what's happening. And, you know, if someone were to look at the content that I'm doing, because like I haven't been making a lot of it, but like if they were to look at it, like there's not a lot of conversation about that. But that doesn't mean that, like, you know, you said, that doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. So I think there's that, you know, part of this hot take is like the chronically online people, I think, need to evaluate how they interact with people, because there is a difference between the online community and online world and society. You know, there is a very big thing where like the chronically online people that are just only ever seeing the world through online things. And this is a person that has been chronically online. Like there's a disconnect, because like when you go from like social media content and like community and then go into the real world, there's a very big gap in awareness. There's a very big gap in how people interact with things. Like there's a lot of conversation about Palestine and everything that's going on in the Congo, and you know, and everything that's going, you know, on that online. But if you go to a party or gathering and you start talking about it, I guarantee most of those people are probably not going to be informed. And like that's one way to show up too, is like have that conversation of like, hey, have you heard about it? Like, and not even like in a way that's going to be, you know, emotionally damaging, but just more of like having the conversation to help spread the awareness.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I'm not doing a damn thing about it, and it's not because I don't care at all. It's because I don't have all the information, and I know there's two sides to every story, and I need to at least know what the other side's story is so that I know how to debunk it at the very minimum. And my spoons are deeply, deeply spent in other crusades that I actually know about, and in places where I can actually make a big difference because I'm educating people and getting information that they don't already have. This information, I've chosen not to do anything about because it's so saturated already. What kind of difference am I going to make? It would be like me talking about breast cancer. We all know about breast cancer. Like, we don't need any more awareness there. There's been tons of people who have already fought that crusade. And so there's so many people fighting that crusade that, like, why should I, somebody who's uneducated, somebody who's not going to speak well on it, put my spoons towards that when what's going to happen to all the addicts on the street that I'm trying to help? You know, if my spoons are going to this thing that's already oversaturated with people who know what the hell they're talking about, who's going to help the addicts? So it's
definitely a very This was a hot topic. Before we move on, I just want to put one thing out here, that I'm aware that me talking about how George Floyd and all of the things that unraveled after that, with everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's easy for people, I think, to like come at me. I'm like nervous that people are gonna be like, oh, this you know, privileged white person talking about how George Floyd was so hard for her. And it's
No,
like
that we care that
and
much.
it's like that what happened and Breonna Taylor and all of it was really eye-opening to me. I'm grateful for having that experience because it did teach me a lot about myself, my own white privilege, my own implicit biases, which I didn't even clock within myself until I started looking into this movement and stuff where I'm like, oh my God, yeah, like we all do kind of have like this implicit thing going on. And really, it really was eye-opening to me. And I'm not grateful that anyone died, obviously, but I'm grateful to have had the experience of feeling all the things I felt. But at the same time, it was too much. Like for me to see that injustice and know that it's just ongoing and happening in our country right here.
Yeah, how do you be functional with that on your brain all the time?
And it was just so much. So I understand. I fully get everyone.
It's
get
not that we
my
don't
privilege.
care, that we care too much.
I get my privilege. I do. I understand. I have it. Yeah. So
And
anyway,
one thing, I think when it comes to like, I understand like the concept, like I'm not educated enough on this, so I'm afraid to talk about it. And I think that's where the line of like, are you trying to be an advocate for it, or are you just taking a stance on something that you believe in? And I think that's a big difference of when we look at these things is I don't think anyone's expecting people to be educated on every single subject, every single atrocity, every single thing that's out there, especially because you are doing advocacy work that is very important, that is a very important thing that needs to be supported and like, very close to home and helping people with addiction. Like I think, and like my like nonprofit that I'm working on and like helping ADHD people, I think, in situations like these, it's never like you have to be fully educated on it, but more of like, what do you believe as a human being when you're looking at this? Like, are you willing and able to say what you believe in? And, I think that's the most important aspect when we look at how we view this, because we do care, right? Like we care. And so express some of that. And I think that's a good way to kind of look at it instead of being hesitant on, well, I'm not educated enough. You can
here's my thought behind that is there's a very specific example that sticks out in my head, and that is this was a pivotal moment in my life in my human rights course. We were instructed to, he gave us a few of the hot topics that were in the news and told us to write a paper of the opposing view, of like to write about something you care about, but argue the opposite for it. Oh. And I chose female genital mutilation. And because I was appalled by it, I just was, I can't, how could you possibly even support that? And as I wrote that paper, I still, just to be clear, I still don't support it. But it really opened my perspective about different cultures, and then it made me reflective of our own culture and all the hair we're ripping out of our bodies and all the stuff we're doing, all the torturous things we put our bodies through, and our cultural standards versus theirs, and then us judging them and vice versa. And so that in particular gave me a very clear view of like, even the most horrible, egregious things, a villain never believes that they're a villain. They always think that they're the good guy. So I want to get in the brain of the villain and understand why they're doing that, so that on the other side, I can approach that effectively and debunk it or give better options or whatever. And so when I'm only having one side of things just completely drowning me, I'm like, okay, I hear you guys, but what? I'm not going to join your team until I have all of the information. And I just don't feel like I have all the information now. I'm not saying that I don't support Palestine or whatever, sure, yeah, if there's horrible atrocities happening and it's totally unfair, then great. But like, what are the solutions? What exactly is happening, and how are we proposing that we fix this?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to situations like Palestine, there's a lot of hopelessness on our end because there's not a lot of solutions, and I understand.
And it's
and so and that's part of like I can say that like I'm against genocide. I don't like I can say that. Like I don't need to know anything else, right? I don't need to know the motivations of Israel. I can see the actions that are being taken. And I can say I'm against genocide and I'm going to do my best to have conversations with people, raise money for families, and do it as much as I can within my emotional capacity to do that. And, you know, and that's going to be different for everyone, right? Like there are going to be people that are going to be very staunch advocates that are going to be doing this every day, talking about it every day, and they have that capacity, they have that ability. And there are going to be people that are not going to have that level of ability, right? And I think that's like the whole thing is like when it is taking a stance of what is the humanity there when it comes to these things. Like if someone says, "Hey, what are your thoughts on Palestine?" I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm against genocide, and I think what's happening is atrocity, and it should be stopped." And I'm going to also vote in a way that's going to help stop that. And it's not going to be a presidential election because presidential election
I don't think anyone's for genocide is the thing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I think it's a matter of like, do they see it as genocide or do they see it as that it's Israel's fault or whatever? Do you see how like I don't have all the information? Like,
well, the thing is, like I'm very much against like our president. Like part of I guess my hot take is like our president election means nothing. It's grandstanding, it's distraction, and most people are not educated enough to make a decision on politics. And because this is my hot take, is like our education system is deliberately atrocious through political movements to maintain a society that is undereducated, so they're easily controlled and manipulated. And majority, and this is people are probably going to hate me for this, but majority of Republicans are part of the undereducated populace and are the ones that are easily manipulated and controlled. And the reason why the Republican Party has been able to do all the damage that they've done recently, especially with revoking like all the stuff that they did within the Supreme Court. And they just said, Clarence Thomas said that they're going after OSHA next, trying to revoke OSHA. Like that's all Republican Party stuff. And I think it's just a lot of people are just not educating themselves to make decisions and vote in things that are actually going to affect our country more than just the presidential election. The presidential election is not as important as some other elections, some of the elections that we have, of the other things that are going on, especially like state representatives and things like that. And it's really frustrating to see because, I think there's a lot of people are just disheartened, and a lot of people are fatigued, and a lot of people are angry, and they don't know what to do with that. And that's another part of like the education system is failing us as a country because they're not educating people in a way that helps people make informed decisions. They're just being told things and then they believe it because it's easier to do that than to actually educate yourself.
I think that's happening across the board on both sides of things, or whether you affiliate yourself with a particular party or not. I think what you said about the deliberate nature of it.
To kind of alert on
learn more about the U.S. elections. They're listening to us. To me, as a voter, the information is hard to find. It's hard to know. For me, I get very confused about how our political system even works. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of different elections. There's a lot of different things that
I'm like purposely keep hidden.
Where I'm like, I don't really get how any of this works, and I've tried to educate myself, and it's just frustrating to try and find the information. And it's like, man, there's got to be another way, but I think some of it is probably deliberate to be like, oh well, people are just going to go into the polls or not vote at all, choose not to vote at all because they just don't understand
Yeah.
how important it is. Or
you just look at how to be an elector. Am I using the right word? Elector? No, it's an elector, right? The representative who. It's so secretive, and they do that on purpose because they don't want any competition. They want it all within their.
And yeah, so like there's a lot of things that are happening deliberately that are affecting our society, especially on a political spectrum. When you look at things like gerrymandering, where you have very deliberate, and this does happen on both sides, and some of the more egregious ones do happen on the Republican side because they will deliberately gerrymander locations to make it harder for specific populaces to vote that they know would vote against them, and to stay in power. And like there's a lot of things like term limits should be a thing. I think religion should stay out of politics, because
I think a lot of things need to change and are outdated. Also, like someone who is an immigrant to this country is not allowed to run for president, which I think is outdated. Our country is built on immigrants, and there are a lot of immigrants who would make a great president. Sorry, but
I mean, yeah, and there's also the one thing that that SCOTUS just did, where they basically made our president a king.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have no power in as people, right?
That's one of the things that I had to
scary.
compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I can't even do anything about it.
It's really scary. Some of the things that are happening are really, really scary.
It is.
Yeah.
It's, and I think
I've
part
had
of that.
Listen, sorry. Back to your point. I've had to compartmentalize one of the issues that is the most important in my life. I am so desperately, angrily pro-choice, and since the Roe v. Wade thing happened, I have to be like la 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 la. I can't even go there because I will have a full meltdown. And that's the thing, is like it's not because we don't care, it's because we care too much, and we just have to, like, at some point I still have to be functional and like
100%.
take a shower and go to my job, and I can't be a puddle of mess on the floor and taking my own life.
And I think that's the most important aspect, is like do things at the capacity that you're able to, and like it's if you don't, especially because of like how our brains function, being ADHD, like emotional dysregulation can lead into meltdowns and shutdowns, and then we're just a blob of nothing that we're not able to communicate, we're not able to participate in anything. So like the things
Certainly
that we do to
at that point.
so we have to do things within our own limitations, and it makes it really hard, and it does leave us open to judgment. And I think there's a lot of unfair judgment in that regard, that people have, because I think it's because everyone is so passionate. It's like the people that are really, really passionate, and they're fighting tooth and nail, and like it can be really difficult for them to regulate themselves and try to understand someone who doesn't have that same energy, because it's like, well, how can you not have that energy? It's like, because I have a disability. Like I have a disability that makes me dysregulated, and so like I can't, like I wish I could have that same energy, right? Like I wish I could do a lot of the things that I see other people doing, but I don't have the same level of it in me. So I do what I can, and that's that. I think that's the best thing that we can do. Yeah. And part of it is like trying to educate myself in a system that is very confusing naturally, and there's not a lot of resources out there. It's really hard to find. It's really hard to trust people and trust sources. And like I think there's a lot of things in political systems in general, in our society, that are very confusing, overwhelming, and difficult to navigate, especially for ADHDers, unless it's your special interest. If it's not your special interest, it's going to be hard. So like, and but there is a very deliberate thing that's happening that does keep that information inaccessible. Look at the prospect of trying to ban TikTok.
Yeah.
Banning TikTok has nothing to do with data security. If it was data security, they would be going after Facebook, because Facebook has had some of the most egregious data breaches in our own country. So it is a suppression of education. It's a suppression of knowledge because TikTok is a wealth of it. Those are my hot takes.
Big space hot takes.
Yeah.
They're spicy, I know.
It's all valid. Yeah, there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ways this conversation could go, and a lot of different ways people could take it. And I hope we can all just know that
this is a safe space. So
the three of us, the three of us are, you know, all very compassionate, loving people. We all put our hearts into very important causes and things, and you know, there just needs to be.
We're still at the mercy of our flesh sack.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours. There's only so many hours in a day, and only so many spoons. And we also like, by the way, you got to be nice to your partner and feed your dogs and keep your credit.
And I think like
I can't even get that right. What the hell?
I think disagreement should lead to discussion and collaboration and not antagonizing, right? Like,
for sure.
I don't expect everyone to agree with what I say, but I do want, like, I enjoy seeing other people's perspectives, but I want to, like, again, going back to our, you know, a while ago, where like being curious with people and like why you think the way you do and understanding the perspective, and like, you know, anything I say is not like of a judgment of someone of how it is. It's just more of like, hey, like, let's like inform and like take the information into and integrate that as best as you can, or not at all, or whatever. And like disagreement should lead to discussion and then collaboration, and not
Absolutely.
like
and
fighting.
Honestly, like, I probably would be more likely to get involved if somebody was like, this is what we need to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Like, here's our solution for the whole conflict. Great. Now I can like promote that and like take steps to put that in motion or whatever. But just trying to convince me of your opinion, it's like, we're all pretty aware now. Like, what am I doing here? I feel like it's the forced debate is the position that it's putting me in. I'm like, that's not how I roll. Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for your brain and your heart, and your spoons.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. I love doing this kind of stuff. So like I'm always here and open to have conversations. So like this is what I'm passionate about. So I'm always down to do it.
That's a good one.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can catch him at ADHD Druids. That's ADHD coach Michael. He's wonderful, and he's autism and ADHD informed. I'm sure other things too, because neurodivergence comes with a whole stack of mental health stuff. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely. Right. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Okay, so we just have friends and followers now.
Oh yeah, friends and followers.
Wait a minute, where that was vertical. It's back to vertical.
Do you need this?
I don't think that I'm only going to need it for his interview, I think.
This was so.
Yeah, we still have. That's not recording. That is there. So okay. I'm still living. I think we're still living. Okay, great. Okay, let's do friends and followers, and we're gonna have like a little snacky PB break.
Yeah. Please.
Wes Smith, I don't want to ignore you though, because you're saying I feel ignored a lot. So I was really depressed with and down with my last job. COVID happened. I was able to jump to a new career, farming. I like it a lot, but my wife doesn't. My wife sometimes doesn't. So it's hard to be happy with. Oh, she shouldn't be raining on your brain. I feel like I've been noticing myself dissociating, and my anxiety has been terrible lately. When I try to relay how I feel to my close people, I feel ignored a lot. So I just didn't know. That's okay. I'm always. By the way, I wanted to address a comment earlier. I don't know if they're still here, but J Van Steel and one. I just wanted to address your guanfacine question. Guanfacine is a non-stim, meaning it only lowers your norepinephrine. And so if you have a dopamine deficiency, it's not going to do anything for your dopamine deficiency. For me, I'm on a stim because it raises your dopamine and your norepinephrine, but I'm already super high norepinephrine. So I take guanfacine to lower that. And what norepinephrine does is norepinephrine is the neurotransmitter that makes you super hyper aware of all the stimuli. Like, oh, my tag is bothering me, and I can hear the bird downstairs, and there's that light is. I can't focus on anything because of all the things, and it stresses you out. That's norepinephrine. So if you are primarily distracted because of all of those things, then guanfacine might help. But if you're someone like me who just needs dopamine that's constantly like, I'm a binge eater, I need stimuli, the guanfacine isn't going to help your dopamine levels. So Wes, this is something that would be best for your therapist, because they know all this stuff, or they know all the nuance and all of the conditions around the thing that you're saying and the other person that's involved. So I can't really help you on a deep level, but what I can say is my general rule around invalidating partners and invalidating loved ones is that there is a difference between somebody who doesn't get you and somebody who doesn't want to get you. Somebody who doesn't get you just needs to be informed. And yeah, they're probably if you just got diagnosed with ADHD, you're probably going to say ADHD a billion times. They're going to be like, oh yeah, not for the ADHD. But they'll get over that. Because the more you talk about all your experiences and oh, this is what this is from, they start to understand you better, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And they'll ask you questions, and you can inform them, and they will be supportive. They might say ableist things, but it's because they just don't have the knowledge yet. Now, then there's people who, when you say, this is because my ADHD, blah, 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 and they go, you're just making excuses again. That kind of person is toxic. So I know this isn't about that. I know this is more about your job and stuff. But I've always thought, and maybe I'm not the norm, but I've always thought that in a relationship, there should be some level of if you really love somebody, you'll have some sort of interest in what they're interested in. And it's not because if somebody I love trains, I don't love trains at all. But if they were really into trains and were so excited because there was this train event, I would totally go with them, and I would dote on them the whole time because I love them and I want to see them happy, and I love seeing them indulge in something they love. So, but there's a limit to that. I'm not going to make my new career about trains. I'm not going to schedule a whole bunch of hours in my week to accommodate their train enthusiasm. But there should be some sort of level of support and enthusiasm for that. It shouldn't all just be oh god, here we go with the trains again. You know what I mean? That's my thought. Okay. We need food and pee-pee. I don't know about you.
Friends and followers.
Friends and followers. Okay, sorry.
We have one more segment.
One more segment. We'll run through it. Okay. Friends and followers. Mm-hmm. Oh. Okay, well. Oops, what was that? I don't know what that said. Okay, anyway. Okay, it's time for friends and followers. So, I'm just going to go ahead because my first one, we're talking about some really controversial stuff. So I got a controversial person I'm recommending. She's a comedian. Her name is Jordan Jensen. Her humor's a little offensive, especially in like mental health circles, but it's hilarious, and it's really not offensive if you're just she just has a stream of consciousness, and she's just like blurting out and trying to make sense of the world and making fun of herself and making fun of others and just being very authentic and raw. And yeah, like she uses the R word sometimes, and she's made a couple of autism jokes, but she includes herself in that and makes fun of herself as well, and makes fun of it. It's done in a way where like she is acknowledging that she's the asshole for her controversial opinions. And I don't think that outside the realm of comedy, she actually genuinely holds these as like serious opinions. She's just playing with things. And in fact, I think that she would agree with us on most things. But I love, one thing I didn't get to talk to Michael about, which I care deeply about, is allowing yourself to be imperfect. There's so much healing in that, and just acknowledging your humanness and being okay with all of the icky imperfection stuff that you have to just sift through. Perfection is not attainable. We can't be the perfect person all the time. And so she just embraces that and figures it out right in front of you. And it's not like, these aren't like carefully crafted jokes that, you know, that are offensive and not funny, like Matt Rife. She's just trying to make sense of the world, and sometimes stuff comes out that isn't politically correct. But she's hilarious, hysterical, and I can't stop watching her. She's on, you just Google Jordan Jensen, she's everywhere, but also she does a podcast with her best friend, Ian, so it's called Being Ian with Jordan. So,
Yeah, part of comedy, I feel like, is pushing my boundaries sometimes. So
my theory with comedy is it's only offensive if it's not hilarious. And it's the way she does it, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll check it out for sure. I love comedians. Okay, my first one is a person named Abby who was on the show Love on the Spectrum. If you've watched Love on the Spectrum, she's been on 2 different seasons. The U.S. version of Love on the Spectrum. Her and her boyfriend David. Have you ever watched this show?
no, do you recommend it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Because
I like
all
it.
I've heard is some ableist like criticisms of
It is a little.
but I don't know if that's like.
There are people who have mixed feelings about it. I feel like maybe it's exploiting or something. I don't know. I feel like it is a show that showcases that autistic people, no matter what your support needs are, that like you're still a human and you still want to find love.
Sure.
And I think it's very
It supports that and doesn't like laugh at them.
no.
Okay.
I think if someone's laughing at it, they're coming at it from the wrong direction.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I really love that show. And the therapist on there who helps them prepare for their dates is also autistic herself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it shows the different types of autistic people, different levels of support needs, all of that. But Abby, I loved her on the show, and I love her on social media. It's just kind of her experience of being out in the world as an autistic person who has a little bit higher support needs. She still lives with her mom. You know, she has a boyfriend, and their relationship is very, very sweet. They're very cute together, but they both still really very much need the support of their parents and their families. And to me, it's just kind of like giving power to that story. To be like watching someone who a lot of people would have a lot of preconceived notions about. Just seeing them navigate the world and being like, this is just a normal person, like you or me or anybody else who I know. They just are autistic. So she's on Instagram. She's for sure on TikTok. I also TikTok. She's on the TikTok. Hats by Abby, Abbey. is her handle. But I love her, and everything on her account just makes me smile. It's just such fun content. I love her.
My second one is Torin Wolf. It's TOREN.WOLF, I believe. He is a young autistic man. I think he's in his late teens, I want to say. He's kind of brought his whole family in on the account. And so it's like this autistic family, and they get really vulnerable and they get really granular about daily life, and they get very honest and insightful about life and discovering they're autistic and growing up autistic. The mom was late diagnosed just recently. I think she just was diagnosed like 2 years ago or something. And the whole reason that I came across his account and started following was because she did a really vulnerable post about how having kids was absolutely awful and horrible and miserable for her.
I know this account. I follow this account.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of like ARPID stuff.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the name because I think it's just someone I just recently started following. But yeah, that post in particular, that in your comments.
Yeah, and I just so like respected her for being that vulnerable with a topic that's so like touchy. And yeah. So, but the way they go about their whole account is so kind and compassionate and patient, and you know, even with the stuff in their past that they feel is ugly or whatever, they're approaching all of it in such a beautiful, kind, loving, healthy way. And of course, there's going to be trolls on a post like that where she's saying, you know, that she wasn't that. That motherhood was not for her. But she doesn't get upset about it or her panties in a bunch. She doesn't get defensive. She sits there and is just kind and patient and compassionate about it. But anyway, the whole account is great because they go into like perfect stuff, and they give Torin little food challenges and stuff, and they talk about little. They film instances out in life and like what's the experience that's happening for you right now. Like one time Torin got a haircut and it really super triggered him, and she was filming it, and you could see like they walked us through like right now you can see the hairdresser like talking to him and he's not responding because he's completely shut down. And then after he talks about like, yeah, in that moment I was just trying to hide my anger and I didn't have anything left to speak. Yeah. You know, and so it's just really cool to the way they've just really opened themselves out on social media is beautiful, and it's really educational and sweet, and I love it. Cool.
All right, my last one is the account name is Bootleg Megs, MEGZ. She is, I don't even really know. She's not a comedian, I don't think, like professionally, but she is comedy. She is comedy on social media. She just does these short videos where she has a lot of hot takes. They might not always be controversial. A lot of them are very real. And I don't know. I just find her hilarious, and I always like sharing those accounts that just like make me laugh. She's an Indian woman. I also really love Indian accents. Like, it's one of my favorite accents, and she has a pretty thick Indian accent. So I just love listening to her talk, period. But then she's so freaking funny.
Is this the girl with the mini microphone? She usually wears a crown and a little mini microphone.
No, that's not her. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen her wear a mini microphone. But she's always like, also like holding her camera this close when she's talking. Mm-hmm. She's like always very kind of like, in her post, she's like very passionate or like angry about the thing she's talking about. It's just so funny to have like the like unflattering angle, and I know she does it on purpose just to be funny. Yeah. You know? And she's so funny. Bootleg Megs, yeah. Highly recommend because I just love everything she does. Yeah. She has a lot of hot takes about men and dating men too.
Yes, I think it's one I'm thinking of. Maybe it's her earlier videos.
Maybe.
She's doing those.
Round and round, maybe.
All right, my friends. Well, thanks for
All right.
hanging in there with us.
Yeah, that was a long one.
I hope we didn't upset you. We love you. We love everything. There's only love in our hearts.
Yeah.
But thanks for sticking with us and enjoy your day. But you better stay weird. That's our only requirement here. Okay.
Bye.
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 Okay.
Imagine.
Okay. PP time, eating time, and then we do episodes. Oh, we got to do giveaways. We'll come back with giveaways. I gotta pee real bad, so I gotta pee first, and then we can. Okay, we're gonna take what? 15 minutes. Sure. We're gonna take a 15-minute break. We're gonna eat, go pee. We'll be back with giveaways, and then we'll start episode 10. Yeah. Sound good? Same time, same place. Not same time. Same place. 15 minutes. Love you guys. Thank you, Wes.
15 minutes. What if you could?
I know. What? Oh, 5 minutes. Ow. That's not the end of them. I don't think I can pause this one.